I want to bring in Mark Paoletta. Mark was at the White House in the White House counsel's office over the vice president, was critically important in the selection of the justice for the Supreme Court. Also very close to Clarence Thomas, wrote an incredible book. Mark, I want to shed some light on areas that don't get enough light. They're hammering the Supreme Court justice with these relationships with different individuals. And yet you've got this guy, David Rubenstein. He is one of the most powerful people in D.C. First off, he's the head of the Carlyle Group, which is, if you want to talk about the swamp, it's like the railhead, a massive private equity group in D.C. that's always made its money on government relations. Former government officials go in and work there, and they're totally in bed with the CCP. This is where Glenn Youngkin made his fortune. But this is, I don't know if it's the second or third year in a row, Biden goes up to his, I don't know, $25, $35 million mansion on Nantucket and hangs out for the Thanksgiving weekend. And this guy's involved in a lot. They're hammering the Clarence Thomases and Alitos and these other justices on the Supreme Court. They want to have, show trials on them. They want to get them off the Supreme Court, all of it. But nobody's talking about David Rubenstein and his connections, not just to the court, but the entire Democratic Party. Mark Paoletta, sir.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for having me on. Look, as you said, what I've been focused on is the Democrats' absolute unprecedented assault on the Supreme Court, and in particular, Justice Clarence Thomas, a good friend of mine. They've been after him for 40 years, but they've really amped it up because the court is the last bastion to protect our Constitution in our government, in our country. And the Democrats are trying to, because they lost the war on jurisprudence, right? And it's the Clarence Thomas court in terms of the originalist approach to cases. They're now trying to go after their personal lives, and they've gone after all their friends. It's really despicable. And what's happening now is that the Democrats, it's led by Senator Durbin and Senator Whitehouse, have threatened subpoenas on some of Justice Thomas's friends and some of Justice Alito's friends. And so, this coming week, over the past couple of weeks, there's been this, sort of fight playing out where the Democrats wanted to try and get some subpoenas on some of these people who are friends with the justices, and the Republicans, to their credit, to their great credit, and this is Lindsey Graham, this is Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton, John Kennedy, Marsha Blackburn, have offered up 150 subpoenas to look at the sort of the friends and the Democrat side of the equation. If you want to play this game, if you want to go down this road, let's go. And so one of the people, as you just mentioned, is David Rubenstein. And there's, he gave his jet to Stephen Breyer, liberal justice, a Clinton appointee, a Ted Kennedy guy, to go up to a wedding on Nantucket in 2014. As you said, Rubenstein hosts the president. I think he's got a $20 million mansion up in Nantucket last year, the year before, and I think in 2014. And so this is the kinds of relationships that if the Democrats want to play this game, the Republicans say, let's go. And so this could play out next week. I hope the Democrats realize that this is a terrible idea, and they're sort of jumping the shark, and it's a bad road to go down. But the Republicans have stood up and said, some of these amendments are the GPS locations of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden on certain days. It's the Jeffrey Epstein plane logs. It's also with respect to some of the other justices, Morris Kahn, who took Justice Ginsburg to Israel and around the Middle East on his private plane and funding her entire trip. So it's the Pritzkers, right? That billionaire, talk about a billionaire family, the Pritzkers in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, who wants to be president one day, they sent Stephen Breyer around the world. They have a family organization 17 times, okay, over the course of at least back to 2004 that I could find, flying him around, putting him up in hotels, vacation, I call them vacations. There's their conferences or whatever they try and dress it up as, but that's what the Democrats do. Nobody seems to care about it, but this is the way they go after the Republican-appointed conservative constitutionalist justices.
What is their objective here? Is the objective to try to embarrass them? Is the objective to try to get them to recuse themselves on certain, like the Chevron deference and some things about taking down, as you know, you were very focused with Don McGahn on the administrative state. Is it to get them to recuse themselves in these hugely important cases are coming, or is it actually to force them off the court?
You know, Steve, it's everything. I think it's throwing the kitchen sink at trying to make the American people believe it's a corrupt court, right? And so, so then you say we need to fix the court. And when you look at the polling numbers, the court number, it's interesting. The court numbers are a little bit down. It's in the 40s, but they were in the 40s from, I saw 40% approval back in the mid-teens, actually, from about 2012 to 2018. It went up above 50% under President Trump. I think it was 52% in 2018. It's sometimes in the 50s, but if you look at Congress, I think is at 16% approval, and it's been there for many years. So in terms of who's, if you're going off of polls and who's broken and who's not respected, it's Congress.
Mark, we've sent out, or they're proposing to send out 150 subpoenas for the David Rubensteins of the world and the guys on the left that are totally, completely corrupt. And have this merger of kind of the swamp, the administrative state, and capital markets on Wall Street is kind of the connective tissue. We're in the minority in the Senate. Tell me how because we wanted to have you on today to kick off the show to send a kind of a warning shot that two can play this game, and honestly, we can play it harder. So tell me, if we control the Senate, is there a way to get the House involved here, or how do you? You're a man of action. In fact, I remember you and McGahn saying on the committee we sat on, we've had too many problems with putting people on the court that because of their biography or because of their position, and it's all about written opinions. Written opinions drive the court, and that's why we got guys like Gorsuch, Kavanaugh up there. Walk me through, how do we fight fire with fire here?
Yeah, you remember in those the chart that showed, right, how every justice over the years has gotten more liberal, going back, back into the from the 30s forward, and finding justices that would stay strong through their career. I think the greatest justice like that is Justice Clarence Thomas, and that's why I love fighting for him. So the Republicans have done great. We are in the minority, but in the Senate, you have to debate every one. So it's 150 subpoenas that they've offered up. Fantastic stuff. The Rubensteins, the Pritzkers, the Kahns, lots of amendments to say, you want to play this game? Let's go. If they get defeated in the Senate, and they probably will, if they take them up, if the Senate moves forward with this disastrous thing, the House of Representatives, right? The brawlers over there, Comer, Jordan, they could take up these subpoenas and issue them. And, I was a chief oversight counsel in the House for 10 years. It's a lot easier to enforce a subpoena in the House than it is in the Senate. In fact, in the Senate, I think you could filibuster it on the floor. So, if they want to, so playing, fighting fire with fire is what the Republicans are doing. And they got the will and the capabilities and the talent. And so, again, going back, Steve, to what's going on here, the left is furious, and I cannot overemphasize that. If they are furious that the court, they don't control the court. Talking about the uniparty for for a generation since Warren came in, really, even a little bit before that, the court has been a left-wing institution. No matter, you had Republican presidents. Republican presidents appointed David Souter, Harry Blackmun, John Paul Stevens, right? All of these left-wing justices, right, that kept the court left of center, hard left of center sometimes. And now, right, President Trump comes in, appoints 3 justices, and it changes the world. It is the most significant thing that happened, in the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of President Trump appointing justices that, in my view, are more in line, closer to Justice Clarence Thomas. Thomas, been on the court for 33 years, has laid down a jurisprudence of over 700 opinions that has led the court back to this originalist approach, and the left wants to destroy it. They've lost the battle of ideas. So what did they do? Right? Death threats to justices, right? Going after them, sicking them. The Biden administration sicking them on justices at their homes. Violence, assassination threats, all the 24-hour security. These justices live under 24-hour security now, okay? And I know some of them, and it's terrible. But that's what the left has done. If they can't control it, they want to destroy it. And so that's why it's important to protect the Supreme Court. It's important to push back on these Democrat attacks, right, that are unprecedented. I mean, I think these are unconstitutional to go after. They have no business going into the relationships and friendships, which is what they're doing. They want information going like 25 years with Clarence Thomas and some of his friends. Yeah. Just same thing with Justice Alito, but they've really focused on Thomas.
Hey, baby, we can play that game. You start turning over the rock of David Rubenstein. You start turning over the rock of the Pritzkers. You start turning over the rock of these big progressive billionaires and their relationships to the court. Hey, we'll play that game. We'll play that game. How do we get the House involved in this? You know, you've got some brawlers over there. You got Gates and the guys over on Jordan's committee. You got Comer. Their hands are full, and I can give you some. You know, a little bit of breaking news. They're making a lot of progress on this impeachment effort, so they're busy. How do we get them involved? How would you recommend we get them involved? Because we want the brawlers in the House on this.
Right. You know, a lot of times, Steve, what you saw over the years, right, is like Senator Grassley works with Republicans in the House. So they can work together. And by that, I mean, they have the capacity, they have some of the bandwidth, I think, in the Senate to work with the Republicans in the House. So the Republicans can issue the subpoenas. Right? It's not hard, not a lot of work. They can issue the subpoenas, and again, I know a lot of those guys are doing great work, and it's over the target with respect to the Biden family, right? But they can issue the subpoena, and then they can share it with their Senate counterparts, Republicans, to pour through what's coming in. That's what I think. Is the way to go forward on this. And as I said, it's pretty easy, right, to issue subpoenas in the House and to get them enforced. It's a different process in the House than in the Senate, but that's how I can see them working together.
People should know it was the work of Mike Davis and Mark Paoletta that, with others, but these two were the tip of the spear that got these great justices on there. Mark, how do people follow you? How do they get a copy of your book? Sure. And actually the film too on Clarence Thomas? How they get all your and your Twitter feed, because you're on fire right now, brother.
Thanks, Steve. At Mark Paoletta on X, post a lot. And then I have a website, markpaoletta.com. It's got all my op-eds. It's got some of my testimony and video. I would urge the posse to watch the film. I put up a trailer on my feed yesterday. Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. It's a magnificent documentary. You know, we can go back and counterpunch and show the lies, and they are lies with like ProPublica and their left-wing, billionaire-funded smear jobs on the justice. But learning about this guy's life, people think they know about Justice Thomas. Watch this movie. You will love him even more. It's called Clarence Thomas, Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. I did a book which is based on the 25 hours of interviews, one-on-one interviews with Justice Thomas by Michael Pack, right? Michael Pack, who made the movie. I know you worked with him, Steve, on some other films. Great director, great film. And as I said, markpaoletta.com is my website where you get all my information in terms of the stuff I've written to defend the court and show the lies and hypocrisy of the Democrats.
Okay, we're on offense now, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to having you back. Have a happy Thanksgiving. One of our best guys, Mark Paoletta.
Thanks, Steve.